Goldberg. Goldberg, you know what I'm saying? This episode of Raw was absolutely garbage, okay? This is one of, if not the most boring episode of Raw possibly ever, because this episode was uneventful and it was absolutely atrocious. We're about an hour, but if it was about an hour before this show ended, then I'd probably shut it off, because honestly, I think, what was it around? Like probably like 50 minutes early I shut this off, because nobody cares at this point. Let's be honest with ourselves. This is a disaster. I remember last week everyone was like, oh man, this episode of Raw was amazing. This is awesome. Yeah. Now look at you, man. And like I said last week after SmackDown, which I actually enjoyed SmackDown. SmackDown was pretty good in my opinion. But the fact is this. Only does WWE only gives fans an episode that they enjoy after an absolute calamity or an absolute disaster of decision by either Triple H or TKO. That's what happens. Triple H decides to let go of R-Truth, and the fans backlash all week. He returns that Money in the Bank, and then last week we get a Raw that everyone thought was great. I thought it was trash, but everyone loved it apparently, okay? Then you also had the situation where the Raw after WrestleMania, everyone loved it because Mania 41 was so bad that the following night they had to somehow make up for it, and that's just what it is. WWE only gives you decent shows or solid shows after they have to, because they're put in a position of massive backlash. Now that there's no pressure after last week, all of a sudden you get one of the worst Raw episodes of the year. It's a reoccurring theme that we have to understand. Triple H does not know how to book good weekly television. You may get one good Raw every 7 or 8 weeks, if that, you know? It's embarrassing, bro. Look at this episode of Raw this week. This wasn't even a 3 out of 10. There was nothing eventful. There was nothing engaging, nothing entertaining, nothing to talk about. It was that atrocious. There was actually a lot to talk about. You understand what I'm saying? Because I have some stuff to break down at what that happened tonight that was just it was inexcusable what took place. Number one, I think this show, I saw a report on it earlier. I should have screenshotted it when I saw it. But this venue in Green Bay, Wisconsin, I think had like 10,000 seats, and I think they only filled out like 6,000 or 6,500 of the 10,000, showing you that nobody cares. Number two, I started this show 10 minutes late because I got home a little bit later, and what's it called? The ad started at like once I basically what I'm saying is this, right? Because I'm trying to explain what I'm saying. Basically, I came home at 8:10. I turned on the show, and I was able to basically be filled with ads by 8:25. Even though I already skipped 10 minutes, and I went back and saw parts of what I missed, and I still got back, and I was still getting ads 25 minutes in, which shows you that the proportion of ads to actual content is ridiculous. On top of that, there was nothing and no one notable on this show. So with that being said, let's go ahead and break down what I saw, and then all the stuff I missed in the last like 40 to 50 minutes of the show, I'll break it down later on in the review. Number one, we have to talk about this one of the worst promos I've ever seen ever, okay? We need to understand something. When your show opens up with Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio in the ring cutting a promo, you have nothing to offer. Dominic Mysterio is the worst Intercontinental Champion in recent memory. Braun Breaker was better. Jey Uso's 5-week reign or 4-week reign was much more notable and more better than this was, or more notable and much better than this was. Sorry about that. Gunther obviously had a better Intercontinental title reign than Dirty Dom, and so did Sami Zayn. You understand? So there's no excuse for this garbage championship reign where Dominic Mysterio has had maybe 2 or 3 televised matches and 0 promo segments in 2 months as champ. This is not entertaining. Nobody cares about this. What? Let me guess. Dominic Mysterio's over as a heel, bro. They boo him. It's a gimmick now. Nobody cares. He has no genuine heat. Nobody gives a crap about what this dude is doing, and you know that. Nobody has listened to a full-on Dominic Mysterio promo before or after he was getting booed and actually was like, wow, this is great. Nobody cares. And then with Liv Morgan has been cutting the same boring, monotonous promo now, but it feels like forever at this point. I'm the Women's World Champion. I'm awesome. Stop. This is garbage. And when Io Sky came out after her and cut one of the worst promos of all time, it just becomes unbearable. Liv Morgan comes out and basically says, I want respect. You know who else wants respect? Dr. Libations, I respect you. I need you. You know what I'm saying? But Liv Morgan comes out and says she wants respect and that she basically just continues to ramble on. I literally was so bored out of my mind. I was just like, dude, just stop blabbering at this point. She says like Nikki Bella didn't, shout her out last week, so it pissed her off. And then Liv Morgan basically says, after all that blabbering, says that she wants a rematch for her title. She's gonna take back a title that she never lost, yeah. She's going to try and get a rematch versus Io for the Women's World Championship. This is why the rematch is just so stupid. For some odd reason, Gunther gets to get a rematch after tapping out in 5 seconds to Jey Uso and then fighting against Patrick McAfee at Backlash. All of a sudden, Gunther gets a world title rematch. You have Io Sky after she lost to Bayley at Mania 40. No rematch. Roman Reigns, 4-year championship reign. When he comes back, no rematch. Cody Rhodes has the belt for over a year. Comes back, gets no rematch, and has to do a King of the Ring tournament in order to get a shot at the same championship that he just had at Mania and that he literally pinned the WWE champion at Money in the Bank. But he still has to go back and fight his way back. It just makes no sense. Damian Priest got a rematch. Why is it that they just pick and choose who gets world title rematches and who gets rematches in general? It's unacceptable, man. It's stupid at this point. Nothing makes any sense. None of this stuff is calculated. It's not thought out. So they just pick and choose when the rematch clause works so they can do their stupid stories. In the game, Triple H, I'm gonna outsmart them. He pays attention to all the social media backlash, even though he says, oh, well, the fans aren't real. The internet isn't real. I'm the game. Shut up. You know, just stop the nonsense at this point. He says the internet isn't real. Obviously, we've all been asking where the heck is Io Sky. She's the world champion. She's had one match in 8 weeks since winning the title. And she's been in what has she done in the last 8 weeks? Let's think about this for a second, because we're going to break this down. You know, I have the time. I'm going to talk about this realistically. Io Sky is the best, if not one of the best in-ring wrestlers in the women's division on the planet right now. And you mean to tell me that the best way to utilize her as your women's world heavyweight champion of your entire company, the face of the women's division on Raw, and one of the faces just in general, all she has been relegated to is one world championship match at Mania. She got that. That was her title defense. Cool. After that, she fought Stephanie Vaquer on the Raw after WrestleMania. Then, since then, she's had 0 matches televised. 0 matches. She's the best in-ring performer. She barely can speak, you know what I'm saying, what's it called, good English. You know what I'm saying? It's not her first language, so she struggles with it. And they're putting her out here in backstage segments and then in a promo in the ring to say nothing. That's the best use you have of a champion as great as Io Sky? Or a wrestler as great as Io Sky? Really? I mean, this championship reign is useless. Why even put the belt on her? You know, you should have just put the belt on Bianca and had her feud with Jade and Naomi the whole summer and eventually have her drop it to Naomi at SummerSlam or something. That would have been much better use of your time than this. You could have given it back to Rhea Ripley for all I care at this point if this is how you were going to book it, you know? So it's just a disaster. Io Sky then comes out and, you know, after Liv Morgan basically tells Io Sky, hey, just give me the title now, you know, just give it to me. Thank you. Give me the title. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No thank you. How about that? You know, no yeet. How about that? Okay, Io Sky basically says, you know, what's it called? I don't even remember what she says, to be honest. I think she just said something basically about how, hey, I'll give you the title, but you took Dominic Mysterio. You can't just take this championship. A cheap heat promo. She then throws the belt at Liv and then kicks her in the head, kicks Dom in the head, stands tall with the belt. What did this further? What did it further? Now we're going to get Liv versus Io Sky at what? Saturday Night Main Event? Huh? Women's Evolution? I don't give a crap. Nobody wants to see the same matches every single week. For some odd reason, we're told to us how amazing this women's division is in WWE, but yet we see the same people fighting for the same belts every week. What the heck is this, man? Huh? What kind of stuff is this garbage at this point? This is just stupid, man. Anyways, we move on from this. We then get to a trash fatal 4-way for the women's Queen of the Ring qualifier stuff. A bunch of botches. I think Stephanie Vaquer tweaked her knee, unfortunately, so I hope she's okay, but she might be injured. I don't know. And then, Asuka has her return, which is cool. It's good to see Asuka back in the fray. The match itself was filled with botches and nonsensical moves. A bunch of really choppy wrestling. Pretty bad match to get through, in my opinion. Raquel Rodriguez gets pulled out of the ring as she's about to try and pin Stephanie. Rhea Ripley hits a riptide on Raquel Rodriguez, and that's pretty much that. Rhea comes out, gets a pop, and then that's pretty much it. She throws Raquel back in the ring, and then Asuka hits her finisher, and then goes for the pin and gets the W. So, obviously, Asuka wasn't going to lose her first match back in a year, so that's that. She's now going to fight Alexa Bliss on SmackDown this week to see who advances in the Women's Queen of the Ring tournament, but after this, she cuts one of the worst promos of all time. I could not stop I could not stop laughing for like 15 minutes after this promo took place because it was so bad. She comes up after Kathy Kelly interviews her and she goes, "The fire is still here. No one can beat Asuka." It was the most boring and cringe and corny dialogue ever. It was delivered horrendously. This is the type of content you are getting consistently, man. This is embarrassing at this point. Now, we then move on to the jobber of epic proportions in Gunther. We have to now look at this guy realistically speaking. He obviously should not have been the one to dethrone Jey. They should have had had LA Knight win the briefcase at Money in the Bank and then cash in on Jay after a hard-fought match of him retaining versus Gunther or losing to Gunther last week, and LA Knight should have became your World Heavyweight Champion. That's what should have happened, but instead, we got Gunther winning the belt back, and he's already back to doing the same thing he did in his first reign. Have bad promos, barely show up, and barely wrestle despite being called the Ring General. Gunther, the Ring Jobber Gunther. That's what Gunther is. He does nothing to contribute to this company anymore. I'm sorry, man. I hate to be this guy, but we have to be honest about this. He sells no tickets. He brings in no extra viewership. He puts no butts in seats. He sells no merch. No one goes up to you and says, hey, did you see my new Gunther merch? Did you get the new Gunther shirt off that? Like, what the? Come on, man. He sells no merch. He barely wrestles despite being called the Ring General. His whole gimmick is allegedly to put on great matches. He has not had a great one-on-one singles match since SummerSlam, which was last year. That was 10 months ago, was his last great singles match, in my opinion, bro. That is embarrassing. And on top of that, he has no memorable moments on the mic. He has no engaging moments on the mic. He's not a great storyteller. And on top of that, he has no memorable or great feuds, unless you memorize his Jey Uso feud for how bad it was. Other than that, he has done nothing. So I ask you this question: what is he contributing enough to become the World Heavyweight Champion for the second time in a year? It is embarrassing, bro. I honestly, at this point, vacate the world title. Vacate the world title until you decide, until Triple Fraud, you know what I'm saying, decides to put the belt on someone who can actually use the belt and elevate it, like an LA Knight or a Drew McIntyre, or even on a Seth Rollins, whoever the heck, CM Punk, etc. Put it on one of them, or give it back to Jayathan Uso and see what he can do with it or something. Just have him yeet or something. At least he contributes to the company. What is Gunther contributing? How do you have a world title reign? He had the Ring General Gunther had 6 title defenses in nearly 300 days as world champion. How can you defend this? What is there to defend? He had no good promos in 6 defenses, and 5 of those defenses were straight garbage in terms of the match quality. How? How can we get, like, it's unacceptable. He then gets on the mic and does what he does best, which is bore us and put us to sleep. The only person who falls asleep during Gunther's matches is not the person in the sleeper hold, it's the viewers watching the match. Gunther goes in there and basically says, you know, I am the world champion. Jay is not ready. Jay. And then he basically says, I've heard the rumors, but Sethington Rollins, I know that you want to cash in, you want this belt, and you will not get it. Blah, blah, blah. No one cares until Goldberg, Oldberg, Coldberg, Soldberg. You know what I'm saying? Just all types of words you want to rhyme with old. That's what comes out to the ring. My boy Goldberg comes out, has an amazing entrance. They got the pyro cooking for him. You know, I'm really glad to see this because, quite frankly, I like Goldberg's entrance. It's pretty amazing. One of my favorite wrestling entrances of all time. Goldberg then comes out to the ring and actually has some intensity on the mic and says, I want to congratulate you, Gunther. I want to show some respect to you, Gunther. I want to show you some love, Gunther, for your title reign. And then he basically says, which, by the way, a few weeks ago, I saw some type of interview or something like that where Goldberg was basically bringing up the fact that his shoulder has been hurting him for like years. His knee got injured during his training and, you know, to have this last match versus Gunther, and that he's been injured like basically for years at this point. And you can tell when he came out that he's still wobbling a little bit, like he's clearly older and he has been injured multiple times in his life. But I don't know why this suit is still wrestling, but it is what it is. Anyways, he then comes out here, okay? He basically says, Gunther, I want to congratulate you for being world champ and let you know that we are not done yet. You disrespected me at Georgia, you know what I'm saying? Georgia had bad blood some months ago, and now I'm going to return the favor when we head to Georgia for Saturday Night Main Event because you're mine and you're next. And that's basically announces that we're going to get Goldberg versus Gunther for the world title at Saturday Night Main Event next month. Who's going to win this match? I don't know. This is so unpredictable. This is amazing. Papa H is cooking. This is epic. Stop. This is a disaster of epic proportions, okay? That's what it is. The world title is essentially meaningless and no one cares about it. Now, and also, if you notice, they're already starting this similar thing with Gunther, which we already know for the next 5 weeks, basically, until Saturday Night Main Event, or 4 weeks. He's not going to be wrestling or doing anything of note on Raw besides maybe cutting another promo or two with Goldberg. But on top of that, Gunther also has a situation now where basically it's like his feud with Damian Priest, where he was like scared of Damian Priest because he didn't pin him clean, so he kind of looked like a wimp, and it's basically like being a bum, you know what I'm saying, and wussying out of every little, promo or segment they had, and he would get beat up every week. That's already the kind of body language he's giving off in this Goldberg promo, in this Goldberg feud. So just expect Gunther to go back to being a wimp who barely defends his title and still talks trash while doing it. It's a joke, it's stupid, and it's absolutely annoying and boring. We then move on to JD McDonald's versus AJ McNuggets. Basically what happens here is that AJ McNuggets ends up getting the W after hitting the Styles Clash in a pretty cool sequence at the end of the match, I'll give it that, but the rest of the match was an absolute snooze fest. I don't know how anyone can be interested in a jobber like JD McDonald's fighting against AJ McNuggets. AJ McNuggets is nearly 50 years old. Why is this even a match? We're still doing this Judgment Day turmoil arc. Will Dom turn on Finn? Will Finn turn on Dom? That Judgment Day, you did this, Damian. Dominic, I'm trying to tell you something. Shut up! I can't stop thinking about Punk. You know what I mean? Take that one with you. But still, this whole thing with the Judgment Day is an absolute disaster. I genuinely forgot Dom was even IC champion until like a couple weeks ago at Money in the Bank. This whole stuff is just stupid. I don't care that AJ Styles is going after Dom's IC belt. Nobody cares. You don't. I don't. Let's move on. Then we get to Bayley. Bayley comes out and does what she does best, which is cut bad promos. Becky Lynch surprisingly cut a bad promo tonight as well, but to be fair, this is just what it is at this point. Bayley comes out to basically nearly no pop because nobody cares. Bayley, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say this, she is essentially irrelevant. She just is. There's nothing engaging or interesting about her character. Her entrance theme is just garbage now. And on top of that, Bayley has no real gimmick that anyone cares about. What's her gimmick? What's her storyline? Like, what is her character? Nobody knows the answers to these questions. And Becky Lynch says during her promo later that when Bayley didn't show up at Mania, no one cared. They were just cheering Becky Lynch. And that's facts. Nobody cared that Bayley wasn't there instead of Becky Lynch. Bayley could have showed up on the Raw after WrestleMania to job out to Raquel Rodriguez, and it would have made zero difference whatsoever. So it's just like, dude, be honest with yourself. Bayley at this current stage of her career is a jobber. It is what it is. Then she basically talks about for 10 minutes straight, the people. I fight for the people. Becky Lynch only fights when there's a title on the line. But guess what, Becky? You injuring me made me better. I needed you to do this so you could set me up and have me motivated again. I'm like, dude, nobody cares. Nobody cares. I'm sorry. Nobody cares, man. Let's just move on with this. The Becky Lynch then comes out and interrupts her, and Becky Lynch basically says, you sat there and you were okay with being second fiddle. I'm not okay with being second fiddle, and that's why I'm where I'm at, and that's why you're where you're at. This promo should have been a lot better because there's actually legitimate somewhat animosity you could kind of like weave into the storyline here, into actual kayfabe with Becky and Bayley off camera with the stuff Bayley said on the podcast some months ago, and now what's happening now. You could have made this so much more interesting, but instead you failed and you got a bad promo. Becky Lynch then gets some cheap heat talking about the Packers and the Bears. Again, the Bears have not won a Super Bowl. I don't even think they've ever won one. If they have, it was like 60 years ago. The Packers have won like a couple since then, I'm pretty sure. So whatever. Nobody cares. Anyways, Becky Lynch basically proceeds to say that, she'll fight Bayley next week on Raw, and not for the title, but she'll fight her, and that's pretty much it. Bayley then tries to tell Becky Lynch, he's like, step up, huh? Come face me. Why are you walking away? And then Becky Lynch botches a slap, and then Bayley punches at her, and that's it. This was such a sloppy and messy promo, and that's why the way I'm describing it is very kind of sloppy, because that's what it is. It was a sloppy, messy promo with corny dialogue. It wasn't entertaining, and it's not memorable at all. There's nothing else to say about it. Becky Lynch offers nothing of note. Laughably wasn't even there. Bayley wasn't even there. But she was there, but she didn't even do anything of meaning. What is this, man? Bayley has the same repackaging. She disappears for some months, comes back, and is allegedly different for 2 weeks, and then gets beat in 2 minutes. What are we supposed to do about this? So let's move on. And now I'm just now catching up on the stuff that I missed. Unfortunately, I have to report that Liv Morgan did injure her shoulder, apparently during her match. I didn't actually watch the match live, but this is just what I saw, when I watched, pieces of the match back on the internet. But yeah, Liv Morgan hurt her shoulder, man, so unfortunate. Hopefully she's okay. Obviously, you don't want to see anyone injured, like I was talking earlier about Stephanie Vaquer, but I just don't know what's happening here, man. I feel like listen, it may be poor timing saying this, but this is just the truth that I feel like, right? A lot of women's wrestling matches that are happening now, I feel like women's wrestlers are getting injured so often. It just happened. Zoe Stark, freak accident injury. Stephanie Vaquer tweaking her knee. AJ Styles last week, this isn't a women's match, but I'm just mentioning him last week, he's tweaking his leg. Liv Morgan tonight tweaks her shoulder, could potentially be hurt. Asuka and Kairi Sane just injured their knees in their last matches that happened within the last year. How Bianca Belair, her fingers, her hand, or whatever it is, she's injured. How many injuries are we going to go through? It's just, there's clearly something wrong with the preparations for these matches. The fact that these wrestlers wrestlers barely wrestle obviously is not helping at all, because you have to factor in, if they're not doing as many live events or wrestling every week on TV, they're getting zero time to practice and hone their skills in front of a live audience. So when you have pressure and the ropes are slippery and all that other stuff, you have to actually have to perform in front of the public. You haven't practiced your match. You don't have any chemistry with the person you're fighting with. Obviously, you're more likely to get injured. I just feel like that's a byproduct of what we're getting now. So, I don't know. I'm just being honest about it. That's the way I feel. So, it is what it is. But, unfortunately, Liv is hurt. Hopefully, this is just a short-term injury and she'll be back in a few weeks or maybe a month or so. But, yeah, unfortunate to see that. And on top of that, Dominic Mysterio versus AJ Styles for the Intercontinental title is now official for, for Night of Champions. And I think that's the only match that's been made official so far. Yeah, that's it. That's the only that also was made official during the break. And also, Becky Lynch is going to fight Bayley for the Intercontinental Championship next week on Raw. So there you have that. And ultimately, the main event was Jey Uso versus Brunson versus Sheamus versus Rusev to see who would advance in the King of the Ring tournament. And Jey Uso ultimately got that dub. It makes no sense for him to just be fighting for a world title last week that they literally said he was injured. His ribs were hurt. That's why he couldn't beat Gunther. That's why he couldn't fight. And then the following week, you follow it up and he's literally fighting in a fatal four-way match to try and fight back, to take back the title that he never lost, and win the world title back if he wins at Night of Champions. So it's ridiculous. Seth Rollins gets involved towards the end of the show, and Cody Rhodes actually comes out. Dr. Libation shows up, have a little moment there where Seth and Cody are kind of looking down at each other, you know what I'm saying? And then, it's official that Cody will be fighting Jey Uso in one of the finals matches for the King of the Ring next week on Monday Night Raw. So there you have that situation. I don't understand why we're doing Jey Uso versus Cody Rhodes, because once again, they both were just world champions. They deserve to have their rightful rematch, just like Rhea Ripley got hers, Gunther got his, Damian Priest got his, okay, Liv Morgan is gonna get hers. What are we doing here at this point? You understand what I'm saying? Whatever. It doesn't make sense, and everyone knows it. There's no point in even going on about it. But that's the situation with that. We're gonna have Yeet Master versus Dr. Libations in the main event of Raw next week, and just get ready for that, man. Who knows what's gonna happen with that situation? We're still not even going to follow up on the fact that Rollins literally broke his body in half, basically, at this point, at Mania 40 last year to end Roman Reigns' run, and also to help Cody Rhodes get the WWE title. We're not going to talk about that partnership, and then Rollins proceeding to do the same thing Roman did for years by building a faction and running an empire. But again, there's no consistency. There's no actual, thought-out nature to any of these storylines, and we're not going to follow up on jack crap. So that's all you got. This episode gets a 3 out of 10, maybe a 2 out of 10 probably. It was absolute and utter garbage, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Thank you guys for watching. Have a phenomenal day. Peace out and one love.